Live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, here's Sid Rosenberg.
Please welcome back to the program, Bill O'Reilly. Sir. Come on out. Take your time.
Thanks for having me.
Take your time.
Appreciate it.
William.
Yes, sir.
Our country, we are in such a dangerous moment. You've written books on almost every assassination. Yes, you have a whole line of
the killing books.
The children's series you write about killing presidents. Is the time we're in your mind, are we in a unique time in American history of polarization? Or as you looked back on those other moments of terrible tragedy in our country, are there similarities or differences?
Yeah, it's not unique, but the social media and the corporate media heighten everything. So
you're saying Lincoln's tweets were not a part of...
He had to, get a pigeon and throw them out the window. And
Makes sense.
Limited. But the assassins all had one thing in common. They were all mentally ill. All of them. And most of them did their terrible deeds because they were in a rage. And you're going to find out that this guy in Pennsylvania fits both of those categories.
My man Bill O'Reilly, and you got to give Bill credit too, because if he doesn't go on these shows with people like Stewart and Cuomo, Stewart's done some good things, don't get me wrong. He's sitting right next to Pete King at all those meetings and made sure that 9/11 victims got a lot of money for a lot of years, and I'll always love Jon Stewart for that, but he's a creep. Cuomo's an idiot. I can't stand either one of them, but when O'Reilly goes on those shows, at least he provides the audience with another school of thought. And that was some audio from an interview that people are talking about everywhere these days, and talking about, Stewart was really funny there, the Lincoln tweets, talking about books and the killing series. O'Reilly's new book, Confronting the Presidents, may be his best work yet. And he talks about every president from George Washington right through the imbecile with COVID right now, Joe Biden. He's the best in the business, folks, whether it's 9 p.m. weeknights on WABC or his own amazing website, BillO'Reilly.com, interviews, guests, TV show, you name it. He is the great Bill O'Reilly. Bill, that was good stuff. I mean, I got to tell you this. You're the only person, I mean this, the only person in the world that can have me watching Chris Cuomo and Jon Stewart in consecutive weeks.
Well, I'm flattered that you find it worthy. I think that the credit here goes to Stewart because he invited me onto the program, and he did it because he knows that when he debates me, it's civil. And one of the reasons that Donald Trump got shot was because civility in this country has collapsed, and the corporate media pays for the rhetorical assassins to go on television every day and throw this garbage out, and it incites mentally ill people. There's no doubt it does. It incites them, gives them an anger that maybe they would have, but maybe they wouldn't. But this thing is like kicking one of these guys right in the face. Constant barrage. So I give credit to Stewart for that. I want to give WABC listeners a flag. If you liked that exposition, which was about 15 minutes, after it, Stewart and I did a podcast, his podcast, for 1 hour. That will drop late tonight. I think that's the best debate you will ever see in your life.
Wow. That's a ringing endorsement.
It is a stunning piece of public discourse. I don't want to get pinheady here. It's still funny Okay, there are very funny moments in the hour, but I take him on ideologically. And wait till you see it. And it's like, you know me, I'm a fact-based guy. And John is smart, but he doesn't have the command of the facts that I do. And when you see it go back and forth, I think you're going to really be, first of all, you will not fall asleep during this hour.
Yeah.
You will be awake.
Good. That's important. O'Reilly and Stewart. You know, before we take our first break and come back and talk about fact-based, because there are people running wild with theories about this assassination attempt. Right. At one point during your conversation, you explained to him that all these would-be assassins included Hinckley. Hinckley's in the New York Post today talking about how we need more civility. The same guy that shot Reagan and Brady, believe it or not. Now, he's saying that years later. Now he's a musician out of jail. But, you know, you talked about those guys being mentally ill, and I was waiting for Jon Stewart to say, well, so is Trump. Because let's face it, all these libs, all these Democrats, all of them, some have not found the ability yet to be even somewhat sympathetic to Trump. People like Stephanopoulos, Joe and Mika, you know, Margaret Brennan, and others hide it well. But the truth is, they don't like him. They may not want him to die, but they don't like him. And Jon Stewart is one of those guys.
You're right. They're never going to like him. He's the devil. And that's not going to change. And in 2 weeks, when you have a different opponent running against Trump, Kamala Harris, then you're going to see it right back where it was.
Did you just say in 2 weeks?
Well, maybe I'm off by a few days, but it's coming fast now.
Now, why do you say now? He's got the COVID. I know that Schiff is the latest to call him out. Schumer, Jeffries, all of them. They're all calling him out now. But is that why you're saying it's gaining momentum?
Chuck Schumer does not walk into a Democratic president and say, you've got to quit, unless every single Democrat in the Senate feels the same way. He's not a profile and courage chuckster, okay? He's not. He's a party guy. When I saw that happen, I knew.
Yeah.
Now it's timing. Yes, they will have to drag Jill out of the White House. She'll be holding on to the sofa. So two guys will come in and they'll have her ankles and they'll grab her out. But
right.
It's over.
It's over. Okay.
It's just, I thought there was a possibility they might drop that Biden is out today to blunt this Trump speech tonight.
Right. They would do that.
But I'm guessing on that one. I'm not guessing on that Biden cannot run now. He has no support in the Democratic Party. None. You cannot run on that ticket with zero support.
Hard to argue. This is the great Bill O'Reilly. We'll take a quick break. When we get back, Bill said the difference between me and Jon Stewart is I'm a fact-based guy. And Bill is right, and so am I to a certain extent. No, I am. I've been fighting with people like Curtis Lewa and others for days about all these, what I believe are wacky conspiracy theories about what happened on Saturday, even though what Curtis is right is there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Will the fact-based guy blame this on ineptitude, or will he fall off the rails and say, no, we've got something really wrong here, and go with sinister? We'll find out from Bill O'Reilly coming right back.
I've been searching for the daughter of the devil himself. I've been searching for an angel in white. I've been waiting for a woman who's a little bold. And I can feel her, but she's nowhere inside.
Live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, here's Sid Rosenberg.
It's strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down, when you're strange. Faces come out of the rain when you're strange. No one remembers your name when you're strange. When you're strange. When you're strange.
People are strange. The Doors, Echo and the Bunnymen. Let me tell you how strange people are. You know, it's one thing when I went to a Packer-Viking game back in 1999 with Scott Kaplan. People wearing a Reggie White jersey, a Brett Favre jersey, or Randy Moss, you kind of get it. But let me tell you what's going on here before I go right back to Bill O'Reilly. So there are people showing up at these events, the speakers, at the Fiserv Arena, where tonight, of course, it comes to the big one, Super Bowl Sunday, the big game with Trump. People are showing up. You ready for this? They're actually wearing white bandages on their ears in an effort to show solidarity. So not a football game you wear the guy's jersey you love Piazza, you love Jalen Brunson. They're wearing white bandages on their ears. It's unbelievable.
Are you going to do that? You're doing it, right?
Have I done it?
You got to do it.
I think I have to tonight, yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't seen anybody do it on the floor like delegates or politicians, but I'm just a dopey radio guy.
No,
why not, right?
You've got to do that. It'll be all over. Are you kidding?
I think I'm going to do it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to bum rush the stage and tackle Hulk Hogan.
That's
so.
a great idea.
Yeah. Bill O'Reilly just said he's a fact-based guy, and I've been arguing for days with Curtis Sliwa, who believes what happened Saturday is an inside job. I had this conversation with Mark Levin on this show yesterday, and we agreed that there was a million questions, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense that the Secret Service would allow somebody to show up with a ladder and a rangefinder and a gun and be on the same roof of a building there inside, see him 30 minutes before, 86 seconds before. None of this makes sense. I agree. But until somebody gives me specifics that this was, in fact, an inside job, I'll say everything's on the table, but I will not make that definitive statement. Is that not fair, Bill O'Reilly?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a conspiracy industry in America. You make a lot of money peddling that stuff. When I wrote Killing Kennedy, we went in not with any preconceived notion, even though I had done extensive reporting on the Kennedy assassination when I was working in Dallas. And we got every document you could possibly get, from Lee Harvey Oswald ordering the rifle to him fleeing the scene and all of that. Still, some people wouldn't believe it. And people believe what they want to believe. And a lot of people like to live in this conspiracy world. So when I'm looking at the shooting in Pennsylvania, I'm thinking about Uvalde. Remember? When the police allowed these 4 children to be gunned down, didn't even go into the school.
I'm glad you brought that up. I brought up the same thing to Curtis. I brought up Uvalde, and I also brought up Portland. In both cases, the police were afraid.
Another good example.
Yeah.
Incompetence is probably there's a thing called Occam's razor, and now I'm getting pinheady again. But the theory is that the simplest explanation is right almost 100% of the time. What this was, in my opinion, initially, is incompetence. That's what it was. And you're right that the head of the Secret Service, but not only her, the head of the detail in Pennsylvania, Secret Service person, should be hauled before Congress and answer every single question, and you and Curtis should be sitting up there with the Congress people, and you should be asking them questions too. I'll volunteer to go as well. The American people need that kind of clarity, and it should happen. It will happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen next week. All right, and then as soon as the Secret Service people get through testifying, they should be fired in front of everybody.
That's right. Couldn't
Okay.
agree more. Yeah.
They can't
but to your point, and this is the point I've been making, even though you can absolutely make an argument for a conspiracy. Of course you can.
Sure.
Right,
Anybody
but why can't people accept the fact that whether it's fear or they're just not good at their job, people all the time at every position screw up?
That's right. But it's much more exciting if you embrace the conspiracy theory. Like, United States didn't really land on the moon. It was all staged.
Right.
So as a journalist, let me just tell you this. In order to have a conspiracy, you have to have a number of people participating in that conspiracy.
And I keep asking Curtis, if you want to further this conversation, God, I'm so glad you're on. If you want to further this conversation, I asked him exactly that. Who are the people involved here? What do they want to happen?
And they're all not going to say anything. They're all never going to, come forward.
Yes.
Come on. And who would agree to that anyway?
Right.
What human being would agree to that knowing the odds of getting caught are 99 out of 100 and their whole lives are going to be ruined?
Right.
So all rational thought points to incompetence. But, again, it should be investigated every single way.
Agreed.
But don't believe, and this is where Americans go off the rails, when you hear it on television and radio, he had a ladder, he had a bazooka. Don't believe it. It's usually not true. This stuff comes out of the social media where there are no standards. I had a person after the Jon Stewart interview on the social media, they have these idiot companies that put out stuff, say, the presidential there's no proof that the presidential assassins were mentally ill. There's no proof.
What?
A guy's 20 years old, he goes and tries to kill the United States, and you don't think he's mentally ill?
Listen, I say this all the time. It's not just presidential assassins. Every one of these kids, whether it's Adam Lanza in Connecticut, the kid in Uvalde, Nicholas Cruz in Florida, you walk into a school with a gun, you're mentally ill. Anybody who's
That's
not
right.
defending themselves and
They
is thirsty to murder
die.
somebody else is sick.
Again, Occam's razor. If you do something like that, you want to die.
Right.
You know you're not going to get away with it. You're going to die.
Yes.
Either the police will shoot you or you'll be in prison for the rest of your life.
Correct.
No sane person does that.
By the way, my phone is blowing up. You're not going to believe this because you called yourself a pinhead. My phone is blowing up. I mean that. I'm not exaggerating. With people that said, wow, Occam razor. What a perfect reference. And Bill is 1,000% right, which makes me happy because you're proving my point for the last couple of days. So let me get to Trump. You wrote the book on the presidents. Confronting the Presidents comes out September the 10th. You cover them all from Washington to Biden. There was a lot of people who thought, despite only winning once so far, hopefully that changes in November, that Trump could still be considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest presidents ever. Some seem to think you got to win twice like Reagan or Clinton. After this happened on Saturday, and he raised his fist with his face bleeding and the American flag behind him, would you agree now that this puts Trump in a brand new stratosphere in the history of the presidency?
Yes, but not for effectiveness in office. There's a difference. So one of the best presidents was a guy named James Polk, who only served 4 years by design. He didn't want to run again. But Donald Trump is unique among all presidents because he's not a politician, number one. He's not an ideologue, number two. And his first term was interrupted by the worst pandemic in history. Therefore, whatever he was doing ground to a halt. So now Trump, and I do believe he will win in November, but the Trump people better not get cocky because other things are going to happen. But I believe at this point Trump is going to be reelected. Then he goes in. He's got 4 more years to improve the lives of Americans. And the scale is how well he will do that. So if he bogs himself down in a bunch of stupid fights with people who don't matter, he's not going to be rated as one of the greatest presidents. I get a real charge out of Biden going, oh, all the historians say I'm one of the greatest presidents of all time. Number one, all the historians don't say that. They're only the ideological far left people, and the only reason they're saying it is because they hate Trump.
Right.
You can go down on every measure of a president's effectiveness, every single one, and Biden gets an F.
Yep.
All right? Which is why he's the second worst president ever. He hasn't, and we talked about this last week on WABC. My liberal friends, I'm a simple man. Tell me one problem that Joe Biden has solved in his 3.5 years. Silence. Nobody can tell me.
Not only has he not solved the problem,
he's caused them.
Correct. The border was great.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Well,
so when you're into that realm of evaluating presidents, it gets very complicated. Trump, it'll be interesting to see if he pulls back. If he says tonight, I have had an epiphany, all right, I hope, and WABC listeners are very smart. I've had an epiphany since I was almost killed. And I'm going to do things a little bit different now as far as my presentation is concerned. This has not altered any of my core beliefs. It has not altered any of my policy beliefs. But I'm going to present myself in a different way going forward, or at least I'm going to try, because I don't want Americans to hate each other. If he says what I just said on WABC radio, he will win in November.
I think he's going to win anyway, and I think he was going to win before they tried to kill him. And I think he will present some type of a unity message tonight, but if you expect him to be different, you're nuts. He's gotten this far being who he is. He's still very angry with Biden, very angry, and he ain't going to change all that much. I hate to say it.
No, and I agree with that, but he has to be a bit introspective, number one, and he has to understand the level of hatred that exists in this country, and it is the president's responsibility to try to bring that level of hatred down.
Agreed, and I think he will say something, because I think you're 100% right, and I think he will say something to that tonight. You and Stewart, great. The podcast, folks, make sure you check that out. It drops tonight, as Bill said, an hour long. Great. Make sure you go by Confronting the Presidents on September the 10th, from Washington to Trump to Biden. Great. And as always, on Sid and Friends in the Morning on a Thursday, Bill O'Reilly. Great. I love you, pal. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Sid. Just go to BillO'Reilly.com for that podcast. We will have the whole thing there.
Excellent job. Really fantastic. Bill O'Reilly, folks, right here on Sid and Friends in the Morning. We'll take a break.
These days, everything in ATL costs more. But somehow, Verizon costs less. As low as $50 for a single line when you switch. So while coffee is definitely costing more, Verizon costs less. And dinner in Buckhead for two has gotten pricey. Verizon, less pricey. Inman Park rent, that's not coming down anytime soon. But Verizon, down. Just $50 a line. Limited edition sneakers, through the roof. Verizon prices, through the floor. That designer golden doodle, so much more. A single line on Verizon, a fair bit less. Even a good old tried and true hamburger will cost you more. But with Verizon, the same good old tried and true service now costs you less. Point is, in a world that is always costing more, you can get more for less right now at an Atlanta Verizon store. $180 BYOD and $360 local promo credits applied over 36 months. For new customers with one line and your own 4G or 5G phone on unlimited welcome plan required. Additional terms apply. Auto pay and paper-free billing required. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds.